How's it going, folks? Jack here, and well, I've just changed my intro. I don't know why I've done that. I guess it's because today's a day of change. I won't keep doing that change, don't you worry. What is going on, guys? At this point, it is pretty iconic. But what has also been somewhat iconic has been the fact that throughout our time here at Lyon, we have played a 4-3-1. Today, that's going to change, at least with one of our formations, so we are going to say goodbye to the 4-2-3-1 of old. And what I want to do here is start things fresh, as if I have just taken over this team and I wouldn't know what to do. Because, truth be told, over the last 4 years of being here at Lyon, we have had quite a high turnover of players. Granted, perhaps more than you might expect, we've kept hold of players, but there has been plenty of players come and go in that time, and throughout it, I've always kind of tailored my team towards the 4-2-3-1 system. However, as we experienced at the start of this year, we have struggled with fullbacks. We signed Tolisso to play left back for us. He's done an okay job there, but truth be told, he could do a lot better job for us in the centre of the midfield. And, well, with the fullback position looking like it could be an ongoing problem, Moreno on his way out, and, well, right back us only having Lucas Romero and Eder Militao, it feels like as good a time as any to change things up. And that's what we're going to do today. So after a subpar season here at Lyon, and with a number of games left really at the end of the year just to test out some things and try some stuff, we're really going to use the last 9 games of the season here as a chance to test things out, to see how we get on doing something different. So the way I want to approach this is I'm coming in completely fresh. We're going to go with the mindset of, I don't know any of these players. What would I actually play? So I guess for this to work, I feel like the best way to do things is to create a new tactic. And we'll just have it as a create your own style. And to start with, we're just going to make it a 4-4-2. Now, I did ask you guys last episode, you know, in the comments, let me know how you would approach this. Because this is, you know, it's a bit of a brain teaser, I feel like, to try and solve exactly how we're going to play here. And I also mentioned, you know, who are the pillars of the team, in your opinion? The players I really should build around. And for me, there's kind of 3 players that immediately jump out at me. And they are Gabels, and they are Moise Keane. I feel like that as a trio, they're 3 of our best players. If we just look here at our club profile, Aouar is considered our key player now, aged 23. He looks absolutely superb. Really, it'd be nice to tie him down to a longer contract if we realistically can, although it might be a little bit tricky. Let's see, what kind of money does he want? He wants 125 grand. I can't give him that kind of money. We're only potentially offering him a year extension. So actually, for now, we'll hold fire on that. But I feel like between these 3 guys, we have 3 youngsters to really build around. And I've been thinking about things. You know, I've listened to suggestions. Some of you guys said, hey, I'd go with a 4-4-2. Some of us said 3-5-2. Some people said 3-4-3. And I've got a bit of a dilemma. So to explain how I'm feeling about this right now, we don't have good fullbacks. We have okay fullbacks, but the reality is that Eder Militao is a good fullback, but equally he's an absolutely outstanding player as kind of that complete centre-back in a role that I really think he can do for us. Moreno, who's one of our few natural fullbacks, is on his way out the club. Mendy, we have just renewed the contract of. I feel like he could be a pretty good versatile backup option, but equally I don't know if he's of the same world-class calibre as a lot of our other players are. So with that in mind, I'm pretty certain I want to play a 3-at-the-back system. So we're going to try this. You know, obviously over the course of the end of the season here, we're going to get a chance to really try out the formation ahead of next year. But I'm feeling like a 3-at-the-back with Lenglet, Militao and Wallace is really what I want to do here. Maybe, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like we have to go with a 3-5-2. And I've talked about the lack of fullbacks and the fact I'm really keen to play with 2 strikers this coming year. The other factor that I think is a really significant factor is the fact that actually at centre mid we have some crazy good talent. You know, we've got Aouar, Ndombele, Tolisso, Romero, Toussaint. Romero, who's the 4th player down on this list, his media description is a world-class midfielder. And with our current squad situation, it feels, I don't want to say inevitable, but it feels very much like we have to play some kind of 3-man midfield system. The only area of immediate concern I have is actually the left midfield position, because if we do ditch the attacking wingers, there are players we brought in to play on the left, players like Maulida, who, truth be told, he's going to be a good striker, but in terms of as a wide man for us, he's just not going to cut it. And especially playing a free at the back system, I feel like having the wide players play even higher up the pitch would just be a little suicidal. It feels stupid, frankly, and maybe we'll end up experimenting with it, but for now, I feel like something like this is the way to go. So actually, before we even think about player roles, I want to try and block out a team. And I feel like out on the right, it's obvious that Coman has to be the man to fill the shoes there, even if he is going to be out injured for a lot of this end of season stuff. You know, he's out for the next 10 days to 4 weeks. A little bit of news here is that our next game is against Bordeaux. It's actually after an international break. So that kind of helps us out a little bit with this being the opportune time to change things up. In the centre of the midfield, Ndombele obviously has to play. And then really it becomes a battle of who takes that other spot. We've got Tolisso who could slot in. We've got Toussaint who we could slot in. Or we've got Lucas Romero who we could slot in. Romero's probably the more defensive option. Tolisso offers a hell of a lot going forward. And then, well, the issue for Toussaint is I feel like he's a really good kind of anchorman kind of player, but actually, as part of a midfield trio, maybe he does offer a lot as part of a midfield trio. You can have a lot more attacking roles and really rely on him to clean up the mess. You can see as a ball-winning midfielder, he is extremely, extremely good. His aggression down at 13 might be a little disappointing, but marking, positioning, teamwork, work rate, concentration, it's all very good. His average rating this year has been poor, however. But I feel like you could say that for half the players in our team right now. I think to begin with, I'm going to put in Tolisso. That might change a little bit. Just in terms of who we'd have on the bench, obviously Lucas Romero would be an obvious choice. Markovic and Konate, of course, fantastic coverage at centre-back. Often when you play three centre-backs, you might be left with a little bit of lack of quality in the centre-back position with backups. And when you play three centre-backs, you know, there's more of your starting 11 made up of centre-backs. And so the likelihood is you're going to need more kind of backup players in this area of the pitch. And I think between Markovic and Konate, we've got two more than adequate backups there, to the point where they could potentially both end up on the bench. So we've got Romero, Toussaint. Maulida is probably kind of one of our backup strikers. With us playing with two strikers, I am kind of keen to have two strikers on the bench. I feel like James Taylor, at least at the moment, probably is that other man. We then have Shadas, who's been pretty good since he came back for us. The left midfielder position is a position of concern, and in case you can't tell, today's episode is going to be a lot slower. We might get the game against Bordeaux played. We probably will. I'd like to get it done. So at left midfield, we've got Oliver joining us. We let him, well, we've signed him, haven't we, from Porto on a free transfer. He's okay on the left, but that's not really why I brought him in. I brought him in to make some money off him, or at least try. Depay, he's right-footed. He can play out on the left if we needed him to, but actually as a winger, is he the best option there, especially with his crazy high wages and his injury that he's been out with? At 28, I feel like he's the inevitable player who's probably going to have to make way. And then, well, the other options we've got are left midfield. Trincao, I think, has to end the season here. He's not that great as a left midfielder. It's something that we are absolutely going to have to train him in. But actually, as a winger, he's pretty well suited to the role. It's lots of 14s and 15s. It's probably going to end up being the weakest position on the pitch. But he is only 22. He's got plenty of room to improve, and I don't know, he's played a decent amount of football for us, and when he's actually played and had good run-ins, he's done pretty well. So maybe it's just a case of give him first-team football. He's 22, he could really, really develop. So with that in mind, let's put him in this position for now. Of course, this is just kind of the starting 11 and trying to work out who we'd play. The rest of the bench, I guess, becomes a little bit of a concern. We've got Markovic, Romero, Toussaint, Maulida, and James Taylor. Malcolm, who we signed this year, I just don't know where there's a spot for him in the team. I guess maybe if we play him as a left winger, but again, similar to Trincao, he's only competent in the left midfield position. How does he look as a winger on support? His work rate isn't great, and neither is his stamina. And with him being the lone wide player and without the support of a fullback, there's going to be a lot demanded of our players in the wide areas. You know, Trincao, 14 stamina, 13 work rate. It's not super standout. Maybe left midfield is the position we look to improve. It's tricky, you know. I know a lot of people are saying, Jack, you should play a 4-2-2-2, you know, with 2 centre mids, 2 wide players. And I feel like we've just been wasting our incredibly young and good centre midfield setup that we have, and equally just creating a bit of a weakness for ourselves in the fullback areas. So in terms of the other players on the bench, I feel like the obvious one, to be honest, is Shadas to just give a chance there. A more creative centre midfield option, because I feel like between Toussaint and Romero, we've got 2 pretty good defensive players who we can maybe bring on to add a bit of, I guess, defensive resistance. But actually, the rest of the time, I'm not sure how much more they're going to offer. And if Shadas comes in, he is left-footed. He's probably worth training to play as a left winger, you know. Shadas is an interesting one because he's kind of that jack of all trades, master of none. But as a left winger here, you can see he would do an okay job there as a backup, to be honest. And he's been doing well. Let's just praise him. Why not praise him whilst we're here? So if we bring in Shadas, I'm probably looking at a right midfielder. I know people are going to be screaming, Oje's got to be there too. And I'm kind of inclined to agree that Oje probably does have to be there. I guess my concern is that he isn't the best player defensively right now. Offensively right now, nor defensively. There's kind of a risk that Freitas comes back from his loan spell at Malaga and just walks straight into the first team. He is seriously good. Like, he's improved so much this year. I can't show you it because he's out on loan at the moment. But seriously, this guy, he looks absolutely nuts. Like, if we compare him to Aouar, there is not a world of difference between them. And you've got to understand, Aouar is 23. Freitas here is 18. I mean, just as a refresher, we signed him for £2.5 million from Palmeiras. I'm very grateful for them for that sale, because that looks like a fantastic bit of business, especially if he can live up to his potential. Equally, we've got a ton of talent in other areas as well. You know, Tizzy's going to come back from loan. I feel like while we're here, we might as well be planning for next season as well. Both Freitas and Tizzy are worth a spot. Keita's been out on loan this year at Auxerre and has been nuts. And the issue I've got for him is he good enough to just walk into our first team? And he's an extremely good player. I just wonder if he's worth loaning out for another year to them. Like, we know he's going to play regular first team football there. We know he's going to thrive at Auxerre, who are currently 4th in the league. And especially if they do qualify for the Champions League, he could be really good for them. Now I say that, I think they've dropped down to 5th. But the point remains that if he's playing European football, it could be huge for him next year. He's punched way above his weight this year. David Diaz probably has to come back into the team. He could be a really good 6th choice centre-back behind the likes of Markovic and Kanate. You know, it really leaves us with the centre-back position solved at that point, it would feel like. I really, really like David Diaz. Really like the look of him a lot. I'm just wondering if I'm going to have problems with non-EU players. We've only got one player at the moment, so if we register David Diaz and Freitas, we'll have one spot free, which is fine. Emil Olisson, I like him a lot, but maybe we're rushing him a little bit too soon. He's only 16, could potentially look to loan him out. You know, we've given him a few appearances here and there. He's not really stepped up just yet. So I think we'll move him to the reserves for now, but he's, you know, a player who we're inevitably going to be keeping an eye on. Similar story with Rodrigo Antonio. He's currently listed as a rotation option. Really, he should be nothing more than a hot prospect. I'm going to move him down a team. He might kick up a fuss here. He hasn't, which is good news. So we'll have Tizzy, Taylor, Gabels, Keane, Maulida and Freitas. Although Freitas might slot in as a centre attacking mid. It's tricky because I'm kind of trying to plan ahead here now. Lala and Moreno are probably on their way out, especially if we do switch to 3 at the back. I mean, Lala's just really good backup anyway, but Moreno's sold, so we've not got to worry about him. Obviously, we will have Barreau, who might be a little bit of a victim in all of this. What we could do is we could just train him to play right wing back. You know, if we get a bit of an injury crisis out in the wide area, or maybe just the 3 centre backs with the 2 wingers isn't working, maybe we do look to switch to wing backs. I would be a little hesitant to do that, just because if we do switch to wing backs, we're going to just be left with a similar problem in the wide attacking midfielder position where we have lots of players who can play there, but they just don't fit the system. Equally, I don't really want to put all my eggs into the basket of, hey, we're going to change to a 4-2-3-1 this year. And the reason I don't want to do that is kind of simple. If I switch to this system and it just doesn't work, 10 games into next year, it's just not working for whatever reason, I need to be able to switch back. I don't want to back myself into this corner where we just don't have full-backs to play. Now, obviously, Markovic can slot in at right back. Romero can slot in at right back. Equally, of course, Militao can slot in at right back. At left back, it might be a little more tricky. I guess we've got the likes of Tolisso and Mendy who can slot in there, but we could still, I think, make it work, and Barreau could cover there. I guess the one advantage of us switching to this system is the fact that actually a lot of the players we've relied on to play fullback throughout the last few years, I think about players like Tolisso, Eden Militao and Romero, they can all play centre mid as well, or centre back in the case of Militao. So, we've kind of got a team set up here, but I do still need to think about how we're actually going to play. And I feel like the one player who I'm sat at here thinking you could be the piece of the jigsaw puzzle that we have to solve is Eden Militao. He's such a unique player. I can't state this enough. He's not the craziest defensively. He could be an exceptional ball-playing defender on cover. He could be very, very good in that area. He could also play libero. And I realise that some people might be a bit like, what's a libero? I've heard it's a meme. I'll show you here. You can see the description. So, a libero drops behind the defensive line, aiming to sweep up through balls, a bit like a ball-playing defender on cover. He'll pick up the extra attacker and make goal-saving tackles, blocks and interceptions. I think that's something that Militao could definitely do for us. His exceptional athleticism and reading of the game enable him to cover for defensive errors, take possession of loose balls from a deep position and secure possession. However, he will also roam forward in the support of the midfield when the team has possession. With the support duty, the libero will step into the midfield when possession is secured and look to play through balls to attacking teammates. I'm really tempted to play a libero, but it might be really dumb because if we do play him as a libero and he does push up into the midfield, right, we have 2 centre-backs. It's not like there's going to be full-backs on the cover. We would be leaving ourselves potentially open at the back. I'm going to be honest, I've rarely used a libero this year. In fact, I think I've not used it in a single YouTube save ever on my channel. So my knowledge of how good this role could actually be in this system is non-existent. My concern would be that if he does push up and we lose the ball, it's a 2-on-2 at the back. However, is that as dissimilar as in previous seasons where we've had the wing backs getting forward? I don't know. I'd be worried that with Militao pushing forward, perhaps Lenglet and Wallace just have a big gap left in between them, particularly if he get caught out in transition. He could play as a ball-playing defender on cover. Obviously, it's not that dissimilar, except from he won't be encouraged to get forward as much. Eden Militao does have 13 passing and 14 vision. Like, he's good, and he does have that exceptional athleticism. All 15s and above in his physicals, and his mentals aren't too bad either. Stuff like his concentration's great, decision-making is not too bad. He has the flair required, which you'd never get in a centre-back, let's be honest. It's just not a thing. I really don't know if I want to play a libero or not. Part of me wants to, part of me is a little bit scared and feels like it could be a terrible decision. With him stepping up into the midfield, it's almost more important that before I decide on if I want to play libero or not, now I think about it, I decide how we're going to set up this midfield. I'm really tempted to play Aouar higher up the pitch, Really, really tempted to play him as like an attacking midfielder. Just have him playing off the front men. For Keane and Gabels, I feel like they kind of pick their own roles, which might seem odd, but they're both so exceptionally complete as players. I feel like this is a perfect advance forward, complete forward duo. I guess in terms of who's going to play which, I feel like Moise Keane has a little bit better finishing and a little bit better off the ball. Gabels has a little bit better pace and is not quite as creative as Moise Keane. So I feel like Moise Keane, given how good he is off the ball, he's probably the better player to play as a complete forward, and then Gabels could play on attack. If we just click here, you can see the key attributes. Obviously, finishing is very important. Off the ball is important. The fact that Moise Keane has 16 vision and 14 passing makes him really good for this role. Really, really good, actually. And then for Gabels, he doesn't have the craziest of finishing, but he has the exceptional physicals, I feel like, to be the spearhead of our attacks. That's kind of where I'm leading towards him being the better option. I did see a few people saying, maybe Jack, you could train Gabels to play as a winger. He has 11 crossing. I feel like he has too much going forward in an attacking sense with his finishing, composure and off the ball all being 15 for me not to utilise him there. He's only 20. That's the other thing to consider. This is such a young front line. If I can get these three guys kind of forming a connection, like, we are going to tear teams apart. Like, genuinely, we have such crazy attacking talent in the final third. I feel like one of the weaknesses we've had this year has been the fact our striker has very often kind of got a bit isolated. So kind of having a bit of a buddy system here might be an option. You could argue that you play Keane on support, but I like attacking more because, I mean, Moise Keane has the ability to just do stuff on his own. He's that good. Our advanced playmaker on support is another interesting one. I could play him on attack. I really could. It kind of comes down to how I want to set up Ndombele and Tolisso, I feel like. And that in itself is a challenge. Ndombele is very, very complete, but he doesn't have the best finishing. He could be an interesting deep line playmaker option. He has lots of 15s and stuff in this, and if we were to play with a deep line playmaker, it would mean that perhaps Ogier could slot in at deep line playmaker, which he's really, really well suited to for Ndombele, and then Freitas could come on as that advanced playmaker on attack when he's back. If we just look at him as an advanced playmaker on attack, lacks a little bit of the teamwork, but everything else is pretty... I guess his dribbling isn't the best. If it's on support, suddenly the dribbling becomes slightly less important. Equally, you could go with maybe attacking midfielder on attack, which probably makes the most of his overall ability. And that would also kind of work if you were going to play then a deep line playmaker. How good is Aouar as an attacking midfielder on attack? I mean, again, he is well suited to it. A little bit of training, playing it semi-regularly. He could be really, really good at it. It really makes the most of his best attributes. And still, an attacking midfielder will still be very, very involved in the play. Might even allow him to get a little further forward and have a few more kind of goal-scoring chances. The only issue is if I was to play with him on attack, I might want to drop Moise Keane onto support. And if he is going to play an attack, we're going to be asking a lot of our two centre mids. But then again, Ndombele is just a freak of a physical specimen. You can see media description, world-class midfielder. And Tolisso is also considered a world-class midfielder. And also, they can both naturally play the deeper role. Could we go something different? I've never played with a Segundo Volante. Could that work? Could that work? I'm trying to click on... it's a really fine bit to click on. There we go. He could play Segundo Volante. He'd actually be pretty good at it as well. He has 17 stamina and 18 work rate. Am I right in thinking that Lucas Romero actually is a good Segundo Volante as well? I feel like I might be. Attacking wise, perhaps not so much his finishing isn't the best, but he has that stamina and work rate to get up and down. Oh, it's really tempting, isn't it? It's really, really tempting. I feel like a Segundo Volante is only meant to be playable if you have... Oh, okay. I was thinking that a Segundo Volante you could only play if you had... if you had two men in defence midfield, but apparently that's not the case. If we end up playing a Libero and a Segundo Volante, what am I doing? Thing is, it's another kind of playmaker-y role. But if he does get forward, then it leaves Militao free to fill the gap. If Militao plays Libero. At this point, I might as well start playing Aouar as a trequartista and just go full on for the mental roles. This is one of those things where it's like, I don't think I'd even consider this if I wasn't doing a YouTube series, but I kind of like the idea of doing a tactic that's so mental and just works. My only concern is that we might leave ourselves a little bit isolated. Also, I always get concerned by these red squares, but if there's anything I've learned, it's that they're not actually as important as you'd think. Maybe we just go with the double Volante on attack. It's a terrible idea, Jack. What are you doing? I feel like I need to keep things simple. And a deep line playmaker and a box-to-box midfielder is probably the best way to do that. Oh, it's tricky. It's so tricky. How is Aouar as a trequartista? I've never actually even considered that as a role for him. He could actually play it quite well. Some of you guys might remember the Oxford FC save that I had on Twitch back on FM14. In that system, I played a trequartista with a poacher, I think it was, and a complete forward on support, and the trequartista got something like 40 goals and 20 assists in a season. Oh, this is the issue with Lyon Live. Is there are times where if I got in a rut like this normally, I would step away from my keyboard and kind of walk away and come back with a fresh mindset, or I'd just leave this game of FM open on my other screen and kind of just tinker with stuff for like hours, just whilst doing something else, occasionally glancing over. I play a trequartista so infrequently, I feel compelled to read the role just to make sure it's not stupid. See, the fact he does less defensively might be a problem. That's my only concern. He's kind of going to be a bit of dead weight when we're out of possession, and actually we might need him to do a little bit more. I'm beginning to think advanced playmaker on support or attacking midfield on support's the way to go. The only reason I even considered playing an attacking midfielder to begin with was because I was thinking that maybe Freitas isn't as good as creatively as Aouar. Of course, I could set an individual instruction. I just also don't know how I feel about having Ndombele play deep line playmaker and Aouar play advanced playmaker. My only other concern with playing something like this is Lucas Romero and Toussaint are two very, very defensively minded midfielders. Toussaint isn't the kind of player who can come in. I mean, maybe he could play box-to-box midfielder okay. Maybe he's kind of a good shutout kind of player. When you're ahead in a game, you just want to shut the game down. I guess as a deep line playmaker, he's not completely potato. I guess when you look at his polygon, you just feel like his technicals and stuff just look so lacking. There is a weird part of me that wants to train him to play centre-back, but that's just a terrible idea. I mean, he could be a pretty good option at deep line playmaker in truth. Perhaps not on the support duty, on the defend duty, and he can also slot in a box-to-box midfielder. I feel like it's kind of a similar story for Lucas Romero. You know, he can come in at box to box, can come in as a deep line playmaker on defend. Not the best, either of them, kind of going forward, but I guess that's why you have a player like Shadas on the bench, and Auger is just for that plan B. The other advantage of starting Tolisso is that in a game, if it was like, right, the 3 at the back isn't working, I want to switch to a 4 at the back. Tolisso goes to left back, Militao goes to right back, Aouar slots in, you've got a 4-4-2 set up immediately. And because of some of the flexibility we have in players like Keenan Gabels to play out wide, you could potentially even switch just to the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-3-2-1 with the 5-man midfield that we like to use. Ndombele is not the best player defensively, which is the only reason really not to play him as a deep line playmaker on defend. Ndombele is just... he's such a versatile player, but without being super great at any specific role. It almost feels like a shame to play him at deep line playmaker because of how good his physicals are. Like, he can go up and down the pitch so much. But that is another reason why I'm wondering if playing 2 Segundo Volantes isn't the craziest idea in the world. I just don't know how they'd operate together, and it's the kind of thing that probably isn't well suited as an experiment to do in a live series. The other issue is that he likes to knock the ball past his opponent, which is a deep line playmaker. Could be a little bit of a concern. Decisions. I realise I've spent half an hour this episode and we've barely got anywhere. I've not even thought about kind of how we'd actually operate. I guess the other option would be to go asymmetric. Would be to say, hey, what about if we play Ndombele deep line playmaker on support? Then he starts deeper. I mean, that probably suits him better than anything else we've thought of, to be honest. Because he can play that deeper role. It's just his composure that really lets him down, but everything else is 15 or above. Oh, it's tempting. The more I look at it, the more I feel like actually playing as a deep line playmaker on support might be a good idea. Thing is, if you're going to play him as a deep line playmaker on support, you might just want to play him as a Segundo Volante. Let him get forward. His athleticism is going to let him make things work. But then does Tolisso need to be a super defensively minded midfielder? Like a ball-winning midfielder? Oh, I'll tell you what it was. I was thinking earlier about how, you know, I could play a Volante on Segundo Volante on a side. It's because they had to play like not exactly in the centre to be able to play that role. I guess the other option would be something like this, where you play Aouar deeper and encourage him to get further forward. I don't feel like that makes as much use of what he's best at, though. I feel like it's like, what's this like? It's like something. I'm trying to think of a like analogy. But it's kind of like there's lots of different ways to come up with a solution for this in terms of how I set up this midfield. And I just don't know quite what to do. Because I've got both Toussaint and Romero, who are defensive options. One of those could easily start. Maybe you say to Ndombele, sorry, mate, you're not as well suited to kind of the roles that we need, and you change things up. Let's assume for now that Ndombele is going to... Adam Militao is going to play as a ball-playing defender on cover. Then we'll play Lengai and Wallace as centre-backs on defend, or central defenders on defend. That is how I've played my back three at Edmonton in the Edmonton save. That's worked really, really well for me. mean, maybe something like this is the way to go. Maybe we go... Maybe we go something like this. And I realise this might look mental to people, and it kind of is. But if you watched the Sochaux save last year, you'll know how effective an advance forward and a complete forward kind of playing off the shoulder was for me. I mean, what if you played that? Maybe Ndombele. It's kind of like a 4-3-3 where Aouar, Gabels and Keane would lead the line, but there would be a lot of fluidity between them. Ndombele somewhat holds the fort with Toussaint there too. I'm just wondering if you play... Can I bring myself to drop Tolisso for Toussaint, knowing how his form's been? Can I bring myself to do it? Do I need more attacking talent? No, not really. I need more defensively. The only reason to play Tolisso is the voice in the back of my head that says, Jack, you paid £69 million for a player who you're going to play on the bench. What are you doing? Oh, I wish I knew what to do. I wish I knew what to do. See, I actually don't think something like this is the most mad idea. Maybe you play Aouar as an attacking advanced playmaker on support, and then you play Toussaint in the centre and hope that Aouar can drop in when need be. And Toussaint can step up if he has to as the ball-winning midfielder. Because then, when you're pressing high up the pitch, Aouar can press this side of the pitch. Toussaint can fill in this gap here. I'd hope that he would do that, is, you know, basically find himself to the left side of Ndombele as part of a flat four. And then if they beat our initial press, Aouar slots in. Toussaint becomes this middleman to fill the pocket of space. Our three centre-backs are so blooming good. That's the other thing. Like, Lenglet is superb. Wallace, not as good with the ball at his feet, but he can maybe make it work. I mean, if you went with this, could you play Ndombele as box-to-box midfielder? Quite possibly. Would you want to have two playmakers? Maybe not, especially if you've got a ball-playing defender in the middle. In terms of kind of mindset, I think it's obvious that you'd play positive. You've got to. In terms of attacking width, I feel like you'd be looking for quite narrow play, but then maybe we tell the wingers to stay wider. I'd quite like Aouar and the wider striker, which is Moise Kean, if I'm not mistaken, to actually, you know, float quite narrowly. In terms of in the final third, mixed crosses is fine. You can play like a really short, high-tempo kind of play here because you can have so much movement going on. You know, we'll tell players to be very, very expressive. I feel like we have the flair in this team that we could actually do that as well. I feel like the flair in our team is good enough. If we just look at where are we going? Attributes, mental. I mean, do we have enough of that? I guess that's the question. I feel like in the final third, you've got Trincão's on 16, Gabel's on 16. I mean, it's pretty consistent. We've got a really bloody determined team. In fact, the mentals across the board are very, very good, which makes me feel like playing more expressive probably isn't the worst idea in the world. And between, I mean, Toussaint and Ndombele have such great anticipation that you'd hope that between them as a centre midfield duo, they'd be able to read a lot of the play. I really like the fact that Ndombele's got good decision making for like putting in tackles and stuff in the midfield. Our teamwork's pretty solid as well. Man, I bloody love Toussaint's mentals. He's so good. So good. I feel like as a ball-winning midfielder, what he lacks in technical ability, he makes up for in the fact that due to his mentals, he knows what he's good at. He can make good decisions. He's going to concentrate and be able to read the play, but then his positioning and his teamwork, he's going to get in the right places, and then he's more than happy just to lay off the ball and, you know, just cover for everyone else, basically, as that centre defensive mid. I feel like I'm slowly talking myself into this being a good idea, and that might be dangerous. Could potentially play with him on defend if you really wanted to. Maybe that's not the worst idea in the world now I think about it. But that could quite easily be changed if need be. It's in possession, just work out. Play out of defence is fine. I actually would quite like us to play it out of the back. You know, between Lenglet and Militao, Wallace is a little more lacking, but everyone else is pretty good with the ball at their feet. In transition, I think counter-pressing is the way to go. We're going to have a lot of men caught high up the field. If we give up possession in the final third, you can bet your bottom dollar the wingers are probably going to be forward. Ndombele is going to be forward. I'd hope that the core four at the back, between the three centre-backs and Toussaint, they would have held their position. So actually counter-pressing might be good, because even if they beat that press with a longer ball, they're still going to have four very, very good defensive players to get through. And Toussaint should be pretty good at just sweeping up the play. Equally, when we win the ball, I want us to hit on the break fast. We've got athletic players, we're going to have wingers, we're going to have so much fluidity in the final third. Distribution to centre-backs is absolutely fine there. Equally, distributing quickly might not be the worst idea. Just because naturally we are going to have quite a few men up, and counter-attacks might be something that we can really take advantage of, particularly if our can get in behind a team's set of centre mids. See, our possession's the interesting one. But because we're playing with a covering defender, I'm not scared to press as much. And actually, I'd really like us to press hard. I feel like we can, especially with our front three. Like, they can cause the centre-backs a lot of problems. Defensive width. We could defend wider. That might just help us having the centre-back slightly wider in situations where we're maybe playing against kind of a 4-3-3, and they've got two wide men. But that could leave us in a situation where if they have two strikers, there's lots of space between the centre-backs to get into. That's something we'd have to be wary of. Do I want to use tighter marking? I don't think I do, and the reason I don't is because I feel like the way we've got our midfield set up, we're not really very often going to be marking people man for man, but actually we're going to be in the passing lanes, and if we mark more tightly, interceptions are less likely. At least interceptions where the player getting the ball is in lots of space. You know, if they're going in for a tackle because they're marking a player, great, but they've got a player on them immediately. So maybe not using tighter marking's the way to go. I just feel like our team is so gifted that we have to try something like this. Not just in terms of mentals, which I think are exceptional. Look at physicals, like, it's not a slow team. The slowest player in terms of acceleration in our team is Lenglet on 13. Like, it is a quick team, and particularly the players like Gabels, Aouar, and Coman. Like, they are rapid. And stamina is really good as well. Stamina and work rate in our team is great. You know, a high intensity pressing game is not going to be a problem for us. And our centre-backs are absolute beasts when it comes to strength, as are Toussaint and Ndombele, to be fair, as enforcers. Oh, I'm slowly talking myself into this being a great idea. I feel like it's a starting point. I feel like it's a starting point, and I'm liking it. But, and this might seem really odd, I don't think I'm going to hit continue today. I think I'm going to upload this video. I'm going to let you guys see it. I'm going to go sleep on it. And I'm going to come back in with a fresh pair of eyes. Because as I said, in this kind of situation, normally I would, leave and then come back and look at things on another day and see if I've changed my mind or maybe I've spotted something differently. Sometimes you get bogged in a mindset. You're thinking a certain way. And you can't think differently until you walk away from it and come back. It's kind of like you've got a tactical block, I guess. But I would be very interested to know your thoughts on this as an idea. I could make it way simpler and drop Our in deeper. The only issue there would be Freitas might struggle to find a spot in the team, but it's something that we could do. But I do like the idea of kind of having an asymmetric front three and a front three who, to be honest, I'd be looking at to press teams from the off. I think between Toussaint, Lenglet, and Militao Wallace, we've got 4 players there who they should be capable of breaking down most counter-attacking attempts. But maybe I'm completely wrong. As I said, I'd be very interested to know your thoughts and opinions on what we've got in front of us. Maybe there's some instructions that you disagree with. Maybe you feel like I'm utilising players differently. I feel like I am quite set on, at this point, playing a 3-5-2. Of some description, in terms of how, I think the big thing is how the midfield and strikers line up, although I'm still not against the idea of a libero, but if we do go with a kind of a ball-winning midfielder, there's no reason to need Militao to step forward. And having a ball-winning midfielder means that Toussaint and Romero can rotate, and in box-to-box midfield, Ndombele and Tolisso can also rotate there. Which, at least in my mind, makes a lot more sense than kind of everything else we've been formulating in my head. So I'm going to leave things there for now. Do let me know if you enjoyed this episode. I know it's very different. I know some of you will probably get a little bit frustrated wanting me to mash the continue button, but I do feel like when it comes to big decisions like this, especially when you're considering completely throwing out your old system and trying something very different, it's just worth taking your time with it and not, making any rash decisions and feeling compelled to immediately play forward. So let me know what you make of what we've got in front of us here. I'll see you again tomorrow, or rather the day after tomorrow, if you're watching this the day it goes up. And other than that, I will catch you guys later for some more Lyon Live. Take care now. I'll see you very, very soon.